Hi thinkers, welcome to ThinkX Academy. In this tutorial we are going to understand what is the use of static keyword in Java. So static keyword is used a lot in Java and it has some very important role in Java. So basically we use static keyword when we do not want to create an object of a class and we want to actually initialize or make call of the functions inside of the class without creating an object of that class. Now we're going to see where we can use the static keyword. We can use the static keyword in the in front of a method. We can declare a method as static. We can even declare a variable as static, for example, static int a equals to 1. We can also create static block of statements, and we can also create it nested class as static. So basically you cannot create a class as static, you cannot use a static in front of the class, but if you have nested class, which means a class inside of a class, you can make it static. Alright, so let's see what is the use of this static keyword. Now from the very beginning of studying this Java programming, from the hello world, you have been seeing this main function here, and inside this main function you can see it has, we are already using this static keyword here, which you can see. Now this static keyword, we will have to understand what is the use of this static keyword. Now you can see that the name of the file is thinkxtest.java, and this is basically the Java class, and inside of this Java class we have the main function. Now you can see that I'm not creating any object of the thinkxtest class. I'm not creating any object of this class, but still this function is called. We know that if we want to, let's say I create a function in this student class. Let's say this function is the update function, and let's say that this will print the value, let's say hello, right? So this update function will print hello, but for if I want to call this update function, the first thing I will have to do is to create an object of the student class. So I will first have to create an object of this student class, and for that I will use a new operator, and this is how we create an object. And if I want to print hello, which means I want to call this update function, I will have to make use of this object. So I will have to make a call obj.update, right? But there are some situations when we want to call a function without explicitly creating an object of the class. We can use the keyword static, which does a very simple thing, and that is it basically calls the function at the runtime. So when you're running the program, you do not need to create an object to call the function. It is automatically being called at the time of at the runtime, right? So if I will make this update function as static function, right, by using the static keyword, I do not need to create any object of this class. I can simply call the update function. Now you can see that when I'm trying to call this update function, it is showing me an error which says that the method update is undefined for the type thinkxtest. Now this means that if you are you cannot call the static members. Let's say I create a static int I equals to 10. This is a static variable. Now this means that I cannot call the static functions, or I cannot use the static variables outside of the class scope, right? So I cannot call the update function outside of the class, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this and paste it inside of this class scope. And now you can see when I'm trying to call the update function, it can actually call the update function because now it's inside of my thinxTest class. So that's a very important point to note, that if we want to call static members and if we want to access the static uh, variables, we will have to make sure that it is residing inside of the same class, right? So we can make the function call without creating an object, because this update function is a static function, and that's the same use with the main function. That's why we are actually using the static keyword in front of the main function, because it is automatically called by the JVM. Now I can also create some nested classes, and let's say I want to create a nested class here, which is of the name student, and it has some members and functions inside it. Now I can make this class as static. It is allowed here. So if I will make this class static, it means it is available at the runtime. So I do not need to create objects of this class. I can actually access the members of this class without even creating the instance. Now, if I will try to make this class, which is not a nested class, as static, it will show me an error which says that it is an illegal modifier for the class student. So it means that we cannot use static in front of class, but we can use it in front of a nested class. Now let's say we want to actually perform some operations. Let's say I want to add something to this static variable I equals to 10. So I can create a static block which will basically be, it will be called at the runtime, and it will automatically implement when I will run this program. So what I can do this, I can perform some initialization here. For example, let's say I can create a variable int b equals to I plus 10. So now you can see this is the variable b which will get initialized by this static block. Now one important point to note about the static keyword is that if you have any class, let's say I have a class student like this, and if I have created some static members in this class like this, and some static methods, let's create a static method quickly, right? So if I will create some static members and some static uh, methods inside of this class, basically first we will have to write static and then void, right? So it is in order also. So when I create static members and static methods inside of a class, basically every object that I will create of this class student, this value of this value of I will remain same for all the objects of the class. So what is the use of this? For let's say I create, we know that all the students belong to the same college, right? So the college name is actually the same. So let's say the name of college is MIT here, right? So all the students are in the MIT college. So now if I will create objects of this class student, which will be student 1, student 2, and like this, we will use the new operator to create the object of this class student. Basically all the objects will automatically get this value of the college name equals to MIT. This will be fixed, right? So that's a very important point. So these are the use cases of static keyword. We can use it in front of a method. So we can call it without using the objects. We can use it in front of declaration, which will automatically initialize the variables, and basically it makes it available for all the objects that I will create of the student class. Then we have seen what is static block. Static block will be automatically called at the runtime, and we can do some important initializations here. Now the last one is the nested class. So we can also create a static nested class, right? For example, I can create a static class, and let's say this class is of employee, So this is a static class and I can create some members in it. So that's how we can actually create, we can use static for these many purposes, these 4 different purposes. So that's all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.